Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday TLDChat, Training, Learning, and Development Chat on TLDC.us, if you haven't quite figured all that stuff out yet. Thanks for hanging out with us today, everybody. We've got a great guest. Patti Shank is with us today. Hi, Patti.
Hey there, Brent. And everybody else, look at all these familiar faces.
It's all a bunch of our normal crowd. We're going to have to start calling this place Cheers or something. If the same crew keeps hanging out with us, but we love it. We love how people have engaged with us, and yeah, Craig nailed it right there. That's good. Oh, good stuff. But hey, before we get started in our conversation this morning, I just wanted to tell everybody about the TLDC event coming up, TLDC 18 coming up January 29th and 30th in Phoenix, Arizona. We've also got the TLDC chat and community. Become a member and benefit from the little extras of what we offer you here at TLDC. The chat will always be free. This is something that we like to do on a regular basis. Because, conversations should be free. And so to hang out with you guys is just as much of a benefit to me as I hope it is to all of you. So I appreciate all of you on a daily basis for letting me invade an hour of your day and chatting about the stuff we do in training, learning, and development, because it's crazy, right, Patti?
It's crazy. Truly crazy.
Yeah, you've been in this industry for as long as we have, and it just gets to be crazier and crazier. But you get used to it, and you learn the special tricks of the trade, and that's what we're here to share today, right?
Yep, we are.
Fantastic. So for those of you who don't know who Patti Shank is, and I can't imagine any of you folks that are in the chat would have never heard of Patti, here's a quick little look at her website. You can hit her up at pattishank.com and check out all the goodies. I'm assuming this is like the sort of home base for Patti Shank and all things Patti Shank, right?
Yep, and I even put weird stuff up there too because I can.
Right, isn't that wonderful, right? This is the age we live in, right? 21st century, you get to publish your own stuff, you get to go be visible, and you get to own it, right? You get to do whatever you want because you can.
Right. People say to me, like, what's with the migraine stuff up there? It's like, I can and I will.
Right. I'm educating people on the things that I learn about and know about. Why not?
Right. You don't have to read it. I mean, if you don't have migraines or don't know anyone with migraine, then just don't go there.
Then skip it, right? Exactly.
Absolutely. It's like, why are you writing about that? It's because it's a big part of my life.
Yeah, you know what? And it's interesting that you even mentioned that, because that's what we struggle with inside the enterprise, right? Inside corporations, people trying to figure out why would I want to post XYZ on the internal enterprise, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, because you know what? Somebody somewhere might be very, very interested in knowing that, and it could either help them personally or it could help them in their job. So why not is what I always say.
In my very first job as a training director, one of my employees was very into cat rescue, and we didn't have the internet quite yet. It was right before it, and she would put things up on various places about cat rescue, and I was asked to get rid of that and get her to stop. I refused.
Right?
Yeah. And I got in, I can't even tell you the amount of trouble I got in for allowing her to continue. It's like, what's the big deal? If you're not interested, you don't even have to go there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And by the way, she's still very much into cat rescue. And this is 30 years later. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Hey, Christy, good to see you. And sorry you have to jump off, but we'll see you back here. It's been a while. lots of good people in the chat showing up to hang out with you, Patti. So
I'm
good group.
very excited and can't wait to see what your questions are and also what your insights are, because I was just explaining this to a client recently that none of us, learning is such a big subject that there isn't any of us that know it all.
Right. Yeah. Well, sadly, I think there are a lot of us who think so, but
well, that's true. But I told someone who was asking me about what I can do for them. I told them what I can do for them, and they asked, "Well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this?" And I said, "Well, I know people who can do those things, but he asked me if I could help them with choosing an LMS, and I said, nope." I know enough to be dangerous, so I'm not going to be dangerous, but I can put you in touch with people who that's all they do.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Right. I mean, I think that's probably the best. There's somebody out there, are people in our industry, and also, most of them are in our chat today, right? If you look over there, that specialize in one particular area or another. So, why even try when you can hook them up with the best instead of trying to be a middleman or whatever? It's just like, listen, if that's really what you want, I'm just going to hook you up with the person that does that all the time and loves it and is a specialist at it.
Right.
The rest of us are just semi-specialists at all this stuff.
It's a huge field. It's very deep. It encompasses other fields. It's cross-disciplinary. And while I know a lot about the things I know about, the things that I don't know about are also huge and very deep. And I don't pretend.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a great place for us to start the conversation.
No,
I think.
It is. What should we be doing for people, and how much do we need to know? And I think it's fine for you to have a specialty, and for you to or to either go wide on a lot of things, or to be very deep in a few things, and that's your choice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it just depends too on where you feel like your expertise lies, and quite honestly, where your opportunities lie. A lot of times, you become an expert in a particular area, not really because you chose to, but because it just so happened that the opportunities that were presenting themselves to you happened to be in that area, and you went with it. And it grew into something, right? It's a lot of serendipity.
Right. And also if you're lucky, and I've always been, and you know this about me, I'm fairly pig-headed, and I've always pushed to go in the direction I want to go. Sometimes that's been lucrative. Sometimes it's been not lucrative at all. And over time, I've become much more expert in areas I wanted to be expert in, but that's left behind things that I know less about. I'm very honest with people. I know enough to be dangerous, and I'm not going to learn on your dime. We all learn on someone else's dime. I mean, we do, because you learn about their content, we learn about their challenges, we learn about what's possible in their situation. Because everybody's situation is different, but I'm not going to learn about what's the best LMS for them on their dime. That's just way too deep, and I know who's good at that, and I'm not going to even try.
Yeah.
What do you? I'd love to know what other people think about this. What their specialties are, how they've chosen their specialties, because I know what my direction has gone. I'd love to know how have you chosen the direction you've gone in your career?
Yeah, it'd be great it's great to pose that question to the chat, and it'll be fun to watch those as they come in. But just like any sort of community of practice, one of the most valuable things is having that particular bit of knowledge, right? How do you get the subject matter experts in particular areas within a community of practice to bubble up to the top and expose or be exposed or allow themselves to be discovered by the people that need that type of information, right? Like who is, and the interesting thing is that a lot of times the subject matter experts that are the real subject matter experts are never really identified as the subject matter experts, and sometimes they don't even realize they're, expert at something, because they just kind of feel like, well, doesn't everybody know this? And
Right.
until they realize it, then nobody else knows. So, it'll be fun to have systems that can help and aid in that, right?
Right. I mean, it's, like someone says to me, can you do, someone asked me to do a research, for them, this big organization that I'm talking to right now. And they said, can you do the graphic design and the cover design? And my eyes got really big. They didn't see it because we were talking on Skype and we weren't using video. And it was like, wow, no, that's not, I mean, I now can do interior formatting because I had to learn it for my own book. Am I as good as somebody who works in InDesign? I'm not. I know I'm not. But I could do that. But do I want to do a famous organization's covers for them? I don't,
Yeah.
I don't, like designed by Patti Shank, and everybody goes, this sucks. Like people are telling me now about the cover of my book. It's like, I wish people had told me earlier. And so I'm changing the covers, it's like, I'm not afraid to fail. It's, failure is fine. It's okay. It's how we learn.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm looking over here, people talking about the fact that they have programming and graphic design experience. I have programming experience, so I can go into the programming on my website and do things other people can't do. I'm not a programmer, but I understand what the programming does and how to change things. I'm not a graphic designer, but I've worked with them, so I understand when something doesn't look right. But I would never tell somebody I can do the design of a cover for them. I felt like I could do it for me, but evidently I can't.
Yeah,
Well,
I think when we're doing stuff for ourselves, right, it's very different than saying, I feel like I am good enough or expert enough to do it for somebody else for a fee or whatnot, right? It's two totally different things. And I remember seeing there was a blog post, and it wasn't an e-learning industry blog post or anything like that. I think it was just somebody talking about consulting work in general. And they were talking about how just because you are expert enough to, I know, they were talking about the difference between charging by the project and charging by the hour. And as you get to be more of an expert in something, you're obviously much faster at getting something done. So does that mean you should be charging less? And the answer is no, right? Just because, you should be getting paid the same amount, which is why charging by the project is better. It may take one person, right? You could both charge the exact same amount of money for a project, but person A, who is a novice, will take, let's say, 40 hours to complete the project. Person B is an expert. It only takes them 10 hours to complete the project. So who's making more money, right? And so, and you shouldn't be punished. In other words, you shouldn't be punished for being an expert at what you do, right? Just because the expert
absolutely.
can do it in 10 hours doesn't mean you should charge the client any less,
I agree with that. I find, that whole thing has always stumped me. I finally have just decided to charge by the hour, and here's the reason. Charging by the project doesn't incentivize the client to do what they can to keep things going and fast.
Yeah.
And so when you charge by the project, things end up with constant iteration.
Yeah, obviously that the generalization there, it totally depends on the project, right? Our projects in learning and design, when we're creating solutions and experiences and everything that we do, there's so many different variables and so many different things that can go wrong. And it's often a very, very, very complex project.
I find it very, very hard. I don't do a lot of custom design anymore. for that reason, because of the migraines, because of the amount of stress the back and forth causes. But I get a lot of people who ask me if I will help them find direction. What should I be doing? And I love to do that because usually they're frustrated at that point. And I've talked to you about a few of those projects. They're usually at that point, they're very difficult. They're not typical. And I don't finish the project. In fact, I'm talking, that's a client I'm talking to right now that says, we need to do X and Y, and we have no idea how to do it. We've talked to a couple other L&D contractors, and what they're telling us doesn't make sense to us, and we need some help. And you know, I love doing that stuff, but I told you I wanted to talk about a way of figuring out if working with a client is going to be a good fit. I'm extremely intense. I don't mean to be. It's just who I am. I don't want to make people feel like I'm, you know, judging them or very intense or whatever it is. I really like getting along with people, but it's who I am. And so I need to know that we can work well together. And so I have a process that I do. And I talked to Ann about this, and it has worked flawlessly for me in the last 10 years. And that is, we pick a small 40-hour or less project first. And it's always something that's very valuable to them that they can use, even if we don't get along. So it's typically a scoping kind of issue or something that helps them move forward. And we work on that on a, not an hourly basis, on a project rate. And it's a maximum number of hours, and it's very finite, and it's very well scoped.
Yeah, got to have a lot of definition around it.
Right, but it's little.
Yep.
And we work together, and it has to be done in under a month, preferably less, preferably a few weeks.
Yep.
And we get that done, and then we decide if this is a good working relationship. And half the time, it's not.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great approach to do it, right? Because not only do you get to test the water out with them, they're testing the water out with you. You're also,
absolutely
right, in the process, you're defining processes too, right? By doing that, if it works out and you move on, now you've gotten a lot of the headaches out of the way. You've defined some of the processes of how you work, how they work. You know, it's kind of like going on a date with your client.
You're dating the client. That's exactly what I call it. And I actually have a big organization right now, and they said, can you come in for 2 days and train us on your processes? I said, no. Because I know that won't work.
Yep.
What they want me to do is train them what I know so that they can go do it with their clients.
They can go do it themselves, right? Yeah.
And that's fine. I'm fine with that, because I do that a lot with clients. Is I train, because what they have to do is so complicated that they're not going to teach me the content. But what I said is, I'm not going to come in and teach you the process. What I want to do is come and work with you on building a few prototypes, and then you use your prototypes to keep going. And because if I train you generically on how to do what I do, you will not be able to use that process to keep going. If we work together on prototypes, then you will be able to use your prototypes to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. We're getting some great chats in the window. And Mel, so good to see you hanging out with us again too. I forgot to say hi to you the other day. So great to have you back. And Bethany she says, is a consultant interview a first date? And I want to address that. And I think I would consider that the consultant interview is like the phone call to ask for the date, right? It's I wouldn't actually call it the date, because what we're talking about is there's a difference between having a conversation with your potential client and telling them how you're going to do it, but then actually going through the process with them, right? So you might call them up for a date and say, hey, this is where we're going to go eat, and this is what time I'm going to pick you up, and would you like to go on this date, right? And they either say yes or no, right? So the consultant interview is basically requesting the date. The actual date is doing the work, right? And going out and having the conversation and engaging to see if you work well together, right? The date, and because dating is the same thing. You go out to meet each other face to face, and you engage in some sort of activity to see if you guys click during the activity, during the
do they like my process?
Yeah.
Do we work well together? Do they give me work on Friday that they expect back on Monday, which is a no, just a red flag no. And I tell them that in my contract, but every client does that. It's like,
so you get these mini projects, right? Call it a pilot, call it whatever you want, but it really is like it really is like a date, right? I mean, it just is.
And if we get to the point where we can't even agree on what that first mini project is, because it has to be something valuable to them that helps them move forward.
Right, because here's the value too, right? Let's say it doesn't work out, and you say, "Listen, you guys are great people, but your processes just don't mesh with mine, and I'm not the right person to fit with you." At least at the end of the pilot, what you've done is you've provided value, right? And what they paid for is at least, it's good, valuable work, and they see value in having gone through that experience with you, whether you end up moving forward or not. That's really where the value has to lie, right? You have to be able to give them some value in that mini process, or else they're not going to engage and they're not going to take it seriously.
Right. It has to be valuable. It has to be a win-win for both of us. They may not like me at the end. I may not like them. That's fine. They have marching orders to move forward, and I may not be the right person for them. And I've gotten out of that situation that we've all been in, where I think they're terrible clients and they think I'm a terrible consultant. We're not terrible. We're not good for each other. I've dated plenty of men who I don't fit that well in. My husband simply doesn't listen to me, so I'm great for him. I think that's true with a lot of marriages. Over time, we don't listen to each other, but,
it's not such a bad thing at times, right? I mean,
I think come on. I think it's the nature of men and women. We are so
as is the nature of consultants and clients.
And I don't want to be just a consultant telling them what to do. I want them to get something good.
Right.
And if they don't, I'm literally miserable. I know there are people in our field that don't feel the way I do, but I had to stop doing custom work because my migraines were horrendous when people were constantly doing things that I mean, when I tell you in my contract, there's certain things we're not going to do. One is we're not going to disable the next button so that people have to stare at the screen for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And every client would say, well, we're going to disable the next button. It's like, how did I get here again? So I don't do that work anymore, but I do things that clients are really happy to do.
Right.
But I need to know that we can work well together, and they're happy with what I can give them.
Yeah, it's perfect. Hey, listen, I'm going to take my usual at the halfway mark break right now, so I don't forget about it, and to give you a chance to answer all these great questions that are popping in the chat. We've got a very active chat this morning, and I'm sure you and I both have missed a lot of good stuff. So I'll let you engage with those folks for a few minutes while I make a couple announcements. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All righty. Awesome. And for those of you that missed yesterday, I'm going to reiterate this fact just because I I very strongly believe in trying to help out where we can. And we had Anthony Altieri on yesterday briefly, and he's in the chat room today still, I think. And redcross.org, you can hit it up. You're seeing it right here. You can obviously go here and donate. If we click on this and make this work, there's a lot of great information about how you can help with the devastation of Hurricane Harvey in Houston. And I would encourage everybody to do so. But even more importantly, there's Anthony. Anthony is actually works for the American Red Cross. And what happens in these types of situations is I think everybody just assumes that the volunteering is maybe medical or safety related and things like that. But one of the other things that has to happen is the tech, right? There's tech involved. When you have thousands of people on the ground all trying to be organized and get together and solve problems and get the work done, there's got to be people that understand the tech and that can make the tech work. And so Anthony is asking for folks, and you do not need to have a server side scripting background or an MCSE graduate degree in back end computer engineering. That would be great. I'm assuming, Anthony, right? If you found somebody that had those types of skills, I'm sure they would be more than happy to have you. But don't feel like you can't be helpful because you're not that deep into the tech. If you know how a computer works and you know how to get into the settings, and you enjoy geeking out on this stuff, and you know enough to work hard at even just figuring out the stuff you don't know, lend a hand. Reach out to Anthony and ask him how you can help, how you can engage. Anthony mentioned that they're going to be there for at least several weeks and needing help. So if you can't go right away, or if you're fearful of the current state and you want to wait a week, maybe let the waters go down a little bit, or whatever your personal case may be, you can feel free to do that. But yeah, months, right, Anthony? Thank you for correcting me. So there's plenty of opportunity for you to volunteer. I think when these types of things happen, the news has a tendency to over cover them during the worst parts. But these tragedies tend to last for months, often years. And but when the news dies down, people stop caring and stop engaging. So that's one of the reasons why I want to continue to push this each day and just say, reach out to Anthony. I mean, this is beautiful, right? We, as a community of experts, a community of professionals, we have somebody who is fully engaged in this and works with the American Red Cross right within our mix. So, you guys have a direct connect with being able to be helpful and, support your fellow Americans. I mean, it sounds very political to say that, but I guess, but I mean, it's true. Reach out to Anthony. He'll get you hooked up with everything you need to engage. But I would highly encourage you to do so. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to say about that. So reach out to Anthony. That's step one. Find out more. Even if you're not the one, that can do it. Maybe somebody who's looking for ways to engage and reach out, and they want to do more than just donate a few bucks here and a few bucks there to the different organizations. People who are all in on the hands-on stuff, right? Hook them up with Anthony and make that work happen. So, we as a community of practice, the networking is critical, and that's another way you can help out, by just making those connections. So, oh my gosh, and Mel, absolutely. I've seen the pictures of people rescuing the animals that are there, people that have left animals behind. I've heard horror stories that have just, been extremely painful to even hear about. And so, yeah, I mean, literally there is so much work and so much help that is needed. reach out and then see what you can do. But yeah, Mel, thank you so much. Actually, one of our other community members is actually in the thick of all of this. And I have not seen her on the morning chat in a while, but I have reached out and I'm following her on Facebook. And oh, geez, and now why can't I even think of the name? I'm drawing a blank this morning, and why on earth I would even forget her name is killing me right now. Boondock Media, they're there. Their family is there in the midst of it. They are in, they're in the Houston area, right? And they're doing fine. All is well. It's all good. Just so everybody knows, but it's still not easy. And Dana, thank you, Luis. Oh my gosh. Like there's serious brain fart. She and I chat often, and why I couldn't actually come up with her name right there, it's just part of my brain not functioning on certain days. But anyways, I've gone on and on about this for too long, but I think it's definitely worth it, and I appreciate you guys listening, and I hope everybody will reach out. And if you know other people that need the that are indirectly in our community and that could need anything, I think one of the things that we could do as a community is come together and help those that are in our community that need our help, and feel a more immediate impact by helping those folks directly. So, if you have any ideas and there's something that you think we can all do together as a community of practice to support folks who are in our immediate community in the thick of it and they need help, let us know. Reach out and we will do what we can to organize something. So just some ideas going through my head the past few days that I wanted to give a shout out to. Besides the fact that in near floodless Arizona, we have an event coming up in January. We flood every now and then, but it's actually more fun than anything else. So when the streets flood, people get out inner tubes and it becomes more of a party than a tragedy. So, because we don't see much water around here. So, but that won't be happening in January when it's absolutely beautiful this time of year. So we're getting close to go time, and that will be something that will be fun. So in January, be sure to check it out. Be sure to start looking at reservations and whatnot, and I'll be sending out some more information on that. And of course, Luis is doing the same very, very, very soon. So thank you all very much, and let's get back to our conversation with Patti Shank. If I could even remember how to click the right button. There we go. Let's bring her back on there. Perfect. So what had happened in the chat while I was rambling on there? Did I miss anything good?
Well, we were talking mostly about how to help Houston and the other areas.
Oh, wow. Cool. Okay. Lisa keeps getting an error when trying to subscribe as a member. Maybe Luis can jump in and help you out with that, Lisa, or as soon as we're done here, I'll jump in and see what I can do. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Luis is on top of it, of course, as always. Fantastic. As always. But all right, so we've covered some pretty significant ground here today, talking about clients and a little bit about our skill sets as subject matter experts, and how we bring those folks to the top. Since we were talking about it, you're engaged in a lot of self-publishing activities.
I am.
Yeah, maybe you could tell us a little bit. Oh, kitty. Meow.
Can you see my kitty? Yeah, I was a little bit worried that one of them would decide to be on as well.
Yeah, I shut my door so they don't jump up and get on the keyboard.
Oh, listen, if I shut my door, you'd be hearing screaming. So I never do that.
Does your cat know how to open doors? Mine opens doors.
No, my cats are really dumb. They just sit outside the door and scream.
They figured out so fast how to jump up and pull on the knob, and then the weight of their body leans in on the door and it just opens right up. My
my son's cat knows how to use the knob and how to pull from underneath.
Yeah.
He'll try both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
these two.
they may play dumb, but you know what? They are smart little critters.
They are. These guys just sit on the outside and start screaming, and that is not good for a live show.
That's all right. Yeah, we're okay with that. I am both a dog and cat person, so I know it's kind of schizophrenic, probably, but
no, I love animals, and they own me.
yeah, yeah, it's all good. Well, let's talk about some tips from the publishing world, right? You've done this a few times now, right? You've gone through this process with, either with your own books or I'm sure with other people publishing books, and you've got a lot of great experience here. So I thought this might be an excellent opportunity for those who are thinking about writing books. Perhaps I'm certain there are other folks in our chat who have experience here and who also are thinking about doing it. So, I'm not even really sure where to start, but what would be your number one tip that just jumps out at you?
The number one tip is you don't do it for the money. People assume that you make a lot of money from self-publishing because when you're publishing with a publisher, the most they're ever going to pay is 10%. And it's 10% of what they sell the book for, not 10% of the listed price.
Of the retail price, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they almost never sell it at retail. When you go on Amazon or wherever, and it's listed at $75, it's sold at $68. That's on Amazon. When it's sold, it's just never the retail price. So
yeah, well, they'll sell it in bulk for it's a $75 book. They'll sell it in bulk for like $5, and then
right.
10%.
Yeah, right. There's just and I'm glad I have a lot of experience with working with publishers because it really did help me understand what's important, what's less important. But so the biggest tip is you don't do it for the money, you do it so that you can quickly get your stuff out there, because the time frame for writing and publishing with a publisher is about a year.
Yeah.
And in our field, I'm sorry, that's just too long.
Yeah, content content gets old fast. And
I don't know about you, but I get bored with what I'm doing really fast.
Yeah.
I need to get done with a project, move it out, and get on to the next.
Well, let me just say, so my personal confession is I've started writing a book like 50 times. So I probably have 120,000 words written, but it's all scattered all over the place. It was a start and a stop on one idea, and then a start and a stop on another idea. I'm certain that in the hands of a real expert, I could just hand all this content over and somebody could pull a book out of it. But it just has never happened.
Here's my offer. Let's sit down together. I'm in Phoenix to go to the Mayo Clinic for my migraines, and let's just go through your stuff. And I can look, because I've edited a bunch of stuff for others, I'll go through your stuff and help you pull it together. So
yeah, there we go. That's a deal.
And so the deal is, that's the first thing. The next aha is writing is not the only skill you need. You need to hire an editor. You can't edit your own stuff. I can't edit yours. I could probably edit a first pass, but then you've got to have a good editor who can, you have to have an editor. There's a lot of money that you have to spend in time and editing to get your book in shape for self-publishing, without knowing if you're going to sell one book. And you can't charge a lot. When you go through a publisher, they charge $40 to $70 for a book, right? And they do that because it costs so much money to make the cover, to do the interior formatting, to do the editing and all the other things. That's why they charge all that, because there's all those expenses. And then they got to pay you and all that stuff. So if you're doing it yourself, you have to have an editor.
Yeah.
And that's going to cost you somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000, depending on the size of your book. I was stupid. I did my own cover. I knew I could do the interior formatting because I had to. And when you have to do something that's very expensive, you know you're going to be able to do it. So I learned how to do it in about 3 weeks.
Okay, wait. So let's stop right there, and then you know, how was that learning process for you? How did you approach that?
I'm really good at finding information, so I just started with Google searches on learn how something like learn how to do interior formatting for self-publishing. You'll find one of the problems with searching and being a good researcher is not that you won't find stuff, but that you'll find too much. Then, right. So then you have, the hardest part is which of the things I find are useful, which are true, which are good, which are, you know, it's like, you can go down a path for 6 days and realize I have just spent 100 hours and this is useless, you know. And I'll be honest with you, Brent, I did that numerous times, so I can now tell you what the best path for someone who doesn't want to learn how to do it in InDesign. And here's the reason I don't want to do it in InDesign. I'm not a graphic designer, so I'm not going to use InDesign for other things. So what's the next best path for someone who's not a graphic designer? If you're a graphic designer, do it in InDesign, because that's the best route for formatting books, interiors. There's exteriors and then there's the interior.
Yep.
And the interior formatting, I have to tell you, as the author, is very satisfying. If you're the kind of person who wants everything in its place, and you want things to look right, and you want your images to be in the right place, and there is a right place for images. It's the right place is wherever you describe that image.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the part that's so interesting to me, is that I think a lot of us think of the writing of a book as the text part, right? And then you send your big manuscript off to a publisher and you say, let them figure it out. But when I start thinking of writing my book, I always think about, I want to make sure that whatever I write is helpful to somebody. It's not just inspirational. It's not just a bunch of stories. It's not just a bunch of facts and research and whatnot. I want it to be valuable and actually useful. And when I start thinking about what that means, it normally always means including some sort of imagery and maybe a step action process or something, right? And lots of tables laid out in a certain way.
Right. And so the very first book I wrote myself, and I also wrote it for me, is when you're writing instruction, what is the writing and organizing? What are the writing and organizing principles that help people understand what you wrote?
Yeah.
And so I wrote that one first. I knew a lot of it, but I didn't know it all. And writing and organizing for instruction is different than writing and organizing for news or writing and organizing for fiction.
Yep.
And so that's the first book. It's out there. So I now know how to write and organize all my other books. And that book's doing really, really well. And I was able to figure out with that template how to do all my other books.
Yeah, what was your first book again? Tell me the name so we can get it posted up here in the chat.
It's Write and Organize for Deeper Learning.
There you go.
And I'll tell you what was really interesting about writing that book is I read all the research on and some of it was just, my eyes were opened about, like, when you justify the pages, it's better for instruction to do a left justify and a right rag, not full justify on both sides. And there's reasons, there's brain chemistry reasons for that. So when you're writing for instruction, you want to not fully justify. And there's ways of organizing your content in chunks. And all instruction starts out as text, right? Even if you're writing video scripts or you're writing audio scripts, it starts out as text.
Yeah.
And so I went through research. I mean, the research was fascinating, and there are people who have written books about just writing text for instruction.
Yep.
Some of them were in the 1980s, some of them were in 1960s. I had to write away to get things from the UK, and it was just fascinating. And so I put that all into a very small book. Here's what my whole series of books are going to be about. What are the guiding principles? Short, sweet, lots of examples. That's it. I'm going to assume that you don't want all the background research. You want to know what the principles and tactics are and some examples. I'll tell you what's the most fun for me is designing the examples, because I'm a designer, right? So I've spent tons of time designing examples. It's not all text. It's probably half text, half examples. And then I have job aids in it and checklists and all kinds of stuff. So the first book on writing and organizing, it's Write and Organize for Deeper Learning. You'll find it on Amazon.
Yeah, I think Craig went ahead and posted the link in there. So we got you covered on that.
Thanks. So the second book is Practice and Feedback for Deeper Learning. And that makes the first book look like it shouldn't have been written, because this is the central stone of instruction.
Yeah.
And I've learned as much about practice and feedback, especially for me, the relationship of the two, which I knew, but I didn't know. The relationship between practice and feedback, and what kind of practice is needed for remembering, and what kind of practice is needed to make it from instruction to the job. And this one is within 3 weeks of being finished. Then it needs to be edited, which takes about a week or two. Then I have to do a lousy cover. And
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna do a quick U-turn on us here. I love this conversation, and we definitely need to make sure that the publishing and the self-publishing and writing and tech writing, there's so many rat holes we could drive down in that area, because it relates also not only to just writing books for ourselves, but it relates so deeply to what we do. So it's perfect stuff.
All right.
Yeah, but there's some great questions that popped up in the Q&A section, and I want to just jump in and answer some of those. And I know it's going to take us back to some original conversations, but maybe we can just very quickly address these. I'll start with the first one that Craig asked. What direction would you send someone in that has an interest in the L&D field? Do you find out what they do now, or is there a starting point for someone interested?
You mean to learn how to do this work, or
to get into the field? Yeah, if they're interested in L&D field, yeah, and they say that's what I want to do. Where do you start?
Oh man, that's a great question, because it comes up all the time, and I'd love your opinion on that too. I didn't start in L&D. I think we all started from somewhere else. I worked in the healthcare field and ended up being a product knowledge trainer for a pharmaceutical company. And my background's healthcare and health education. So I think the starting place for anyone is to learn about training. Yeah. Learn about how you train people. And there's a million routes into that. I mean, you can read books on it. I took a certification course in stand-up training. That's where I started. And then I started getting interested in why those things work. Why do we do things the way we do? But I'm sure everybody does it differently.
Yeah, I would say too, just like we talked about earlier, it's such a broad industry. L&D is such a broad thing. I would say that you kind of have to start with what triggered the like I would ask them, like, what triggered this? Like, what happened, or what did you do, or what did you see that kind of made you start to go down this path? Because for some people it's tech related, for some people it's design related, for some people it's a horrible experience and they're like, we need to fix this, and they feel motivated to you know, to fix corporate training or whatever. And for others it's just a desire and an interest in learning themselves and teaching. They really enjoy teaching, and so that's kind of the broad doorway that they go into. So Craig, I think to answer your question there, it does really sort of depend on what piece they're interested in. But once they've kind of figured that out, then I think send them to the chat and we'll tell them what to do next. I think it's the best way to answer that.
I think we all come to it a completely different way.
Yeah, everybody does, right? Everybody rolled into this in a very, very different way. The stories are as broad and as deep as the professionals that are in it. So anyways, okay, let's jump into this next one. Patti, have any orgs reacted negatively to your limitations of what you'll do? What did they say? How did you come up with solutions for them? So I think that's in reference to our conversation about earlier dating them.
There usually, if it's not a good fit, it's two-way. I mean, it's obvious, you know. I have only had 2 clients in my entire career where it was very where we decided to work together and it didn't work out well. And I, to this day, still feel bad about that. It's very important to me that if you're going to take somebody's money, they get value for it. And
yeah,
they were unhappy. And I was unhappy, and I'm still upset about that. I had one client who wanted to go in a completely different direction after we were done and wanted me to do it over. Because they, you know, we always write everything down. We always make plans, and then we do the plan. Nowadays, I don't work that way. I do prototyping, and we work off prototypes, and we move forward with the prototypes. And I don't make, I don't do large plans, and then we work to the plan, because I'm sorry, you learn things as you're working that tell you the plan sucks, you know?
Yeah, you gotta be flexible, right?
Right, so, I mean, it changed how I work, but I think you hear this all the time. You hear it from doctors, you hear it from police officers. That's the one that, that's the case or the situation that I still aggravate over. I don't want to do work that people, I now have a thing with my clients. I tell them, if I send you an invoice and there's anything on that invoice that you didn't value, I'm going to take it off. And I do. But if you do that for 90% of everything I do, then we're not working well together.
We're going to have to part ways, yeah.
There's a problem.
Yeah.
And so the answer is, that's why I have to date my clients, and they have to date me. We have to know if it's going to work. So yeah, there's been some bad situations.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. We're creeping up on the hour. So, and I want to touch on this last one. It's a doozy. So, but we'll have to make the answers quick in the conversation. Kim says, I got into ID as a midlife career changer. Oh, I can't read past my thing. In 2000, counting part-time college work, I've had 20 plus jobs, from factory worker to fast food to retail, then many years in healthcare. Could you speak to the idea of the value that a diverse work background adds, especially regarding knowing one's audience? Thanks.
Oh my God, that is a great question. And my answer is, I have that same diverse background. It wasn't until training that it stuck. I've worked in business most of my life. Because you have that diverse background, you know things about jobs that other people don't know. If you've been in training your whole life, here's what I recommend. You get out there, and when I was a training director, everybody who came into my department who didn't have experience in operations, meaning the actual work that the company did, spent at least 2 months working in operations before they came back to my department. You have to understand what the work is that people do, or you cannot design training for it. And here's Patti at her absolute non-pragmatic worst. It's like, there are things that I believe so deeply that I will not, and if you were my client, you would hate me right now. You cannot design training if you do not understand the work that people do. You can't design good training. So, and I remember talking to you, Brent, when you had just started working as a training director,
yeah.
and you said to me, "Oh my God, all this real stuff is so hard, you know, and you can't get anything done."
Yeah, it's the politics, right? That's why I keep bringing it up whenever we talk on TLDChat, right? I always try to bring it back around to, listen, you know, talking about instructional design is great. Talking about how great we can make training is fantastic. But listen, what everybody is out there dealing with is the realities of the workplace. And if you don't understand the realities of the workplace, none of the other stuff matters.
That's so true. So this is why I'm writing these books, because they're short, they're sweet, and they work.
Yeah.
And so I'm not giving you all the crap, because here's the deal. If you don't understand the workplace, and that's what, you know, I've worked in fast food, I've worked in retail, I've worked in medical offices, and I've had doctors who were my boss for a good portion of my life. And, you know, that's where the rubber meets the road. If you've had a million jobs like that, you're going to be a great trainer, because you will get it.
Yeah. Well, and this is why a lot of folks that have that varied experience, right, and have had their boots on the ground, so to speak, they get this idea of social learning, of quick learning, of micro learning, of, listen, I cannot leave my desk for 2 hours to go do this e-learning training or to, you know, do whatever. I need information. I need to learn, but I need it like in smaller chunks, because that's all I've got. If I'm the person sitting at the front desk, I've got 5 minutes between patients before the phone might start to ring again. Let me just kind of consume something really fast, or I've all of a sudden got a need and I need some information, right? The moments of need, Bob Mosier, right?
Yeah,
throw out his name, you know, and all that kind of stuff. That is real for people who have experienced real work, real environments and whatnot. Those folks that have not, I've discovered, are often the ones who push back and aren't as excited about these new 21st century learning opportunities and the tools and the platforms and how easy it is to create media, and this shift that we're all going through that we talk about all the time that I won't go into again. But yeah, I mean, I love this question, Kim.
Yeah,
thank
the
you.
pragmatics are more important than the instruction. And when people say to me, "Oh, Patti's a researcher and whatever," that makes me sound like I'm one of those people that's going to tell you all the things you should do. It has to be combined with the realities of the workplace. The realities of the workplace are everything.
Yeah. Anyway, we just hit that 9 o'clock hour. So I'm going to just do sort of a speed round of wrapping things up here real quick so everybody can get to their next meetings. But I wanted to thank everybody for being here. And I wanted to thank you, Patti. I'm so glad you and I finally got together. We had to put this off last week because I had to bug out. And I'm so thankful that you, I didn't want to just get a co-host because I've been wanting to chat again with you for a long time. So thank you for pushing it out. Yeah,
I love talking to you.
Fantastic.
And I'll help you with your book.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. We've got your website here, pattishank.com. You guys go there if you want to connect with her. That's the easiest way, I'm sure. But you're on Twitter and the social media stuff too, I'm sure. Go ahead and feel free to pop all that stuff in the chat. Patti, I'm going to go ahead and close down your video window, and we will talk to you later. Thanks, Patti. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on, oh, I didn't mean to shut that out so soon, but what a great show today with Patti Shank. She is fantastic. Be sure to check out all of her books, check out all that stuff online, hit up her website. And, she's part of this community. And it's, like I said, it's so wonderful to have such great people part of this TLDC community that that has come together, really. And I love supporting it, and I love keeping it together and making sure that we can keep this running and offer everybody some value in what they do and to get better at the work that you do in training, learning, and development. So reach out to myself or to Luis or anybody else in the community. And if you're concerned about, wow, is this stuff legit? Are they really going to be here? Does this crazy Brent guy really do this every single day? And the answer is yes. But even when I'm not here, we are here as a community. So keep that in mind. Let all your friends know in the industry that it's a fun, it's a safe place to hang out and to talk shop. There's so much to be learned, so much value you can get from it. At least I hope so. So hit us up on tldc.us, sign up for the newsletter, become a member if you're really uber super excited about it and you want to give some value back. We appreciate that. And if you are interested in meeting this fantastic community face-to-face, consider tldc18.com. So again, thank you all so much. What a great conversation. Again, thank you, Patti, for being here. And I'm looking forward to doing this again because you know what? We're here every single day, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. UK time. Big shout out to those of you from across the pond, as they say, who hang out with us. We love you guys and hope you'll continue to join us during your happy hour on that side of the globe. So again, thanks everybody for hanging out with us, and we will see you tomorrow. Ba-da